Okay, guys and girls, a very good evening again. Today we're going on to the chapter on classification of elements. And if you remember the last lecture, which you're supposed to, of course, we discussed three amazing people: Dobrynov, followed by Newlands, followed by Mendeleev. And trust me, they are not going to leave us so easily. We'll have to keep going back to them. But I need to speak about a fourth person who made the huge difference of creating, along with, if you remember somebody by the name of Niels Bohr, he created the modern periodic table, and you will be surprised, if I may say so, the similarities between the modern periodic table and Dobrynov's periodic table are two very shocking, but at the same time, we go into the details of that later. Now, let's look at the modern periodic table, but before that, I was talking about the fourth scientist that we are going to be talking about today, and that is one Mr. Moseley, who was from England and who was born in the year 1887. He lived till 1915. Born 1887, lived till 1915. So he had a very short life. And why was that so? Before we go into that, Moseley was a brilliant scientist. Moseley was respected across the world as one of the most upcoming scientists in the future. Some people dare to call him even the person who would perhaps unseat Einstein as one of the greatest scientists in the world. So what exactly about him? Moseley was the first person in 2011. If you remember, Mendeleev was already dead. So Moseley was the first person who actually discussed and proved that it's not the atomic mass that matters, it is the atomic number that matters. So what's atomic number? We discussed that on page 1 of your notes. Atomic number is the number of protons or electrons in an atom of an element. So he said all the previous attempts at classification, and please pay attention very carefully, all previous attempts at classification were done taking atomic masses into consideration. He said, sorry guys, atomic masses are not the most important characteristic of an element. It is the atomic number which is the most important characteristic of an element. I repeat, atomic number, that is number of protons or a number of electrons, is the most important defining character of any element and its entire behavior in nature and in the universe. So that changed things around. Mendeleev had already created a periodic table in which he had arranged elements according to their atomic masses. To be more specific, increasing atomic masses. Whereas what Moseley did is, along with, as I said, Niels Bohr, they both decided that it should go according to the atomic number. So they created a periodic table which had elements arranged in the increasing order of their atomic numbers. And suddenly, most of the things that people criticized Mendeleev for, most of the drawbacks of Mendeleev's periodic table, they were seen to disappear. Some stayed, of course. There's no world which you can call a perfect world, so that's always going to be the case. But these guys did an amazing job, and anywhere between 1913, when I think they actually published their modern periodic table, till today, 2020, it's just what, 107 years? In 107 years, the manner in which technology has progressed, the manner in which the lifestyle of people has progressed, and I'm sticking to inventions of right from the first computer to the laptops and to the mobile phones and to everything that you use today. You owe it to these guys. Moseley, certainly yes. Now, Moseley being a scientist, and you may be very much aware, if you think about it, normally we don't think about it like that. The armed forces of any nation, including India, of course, they depend a lot on our scientific knowledge of the scientists. Because you need to come up with ammunition, you need to come up with the latest technologies being incorporated in a real war against human enemies rather than viral enemies, so to speak. So, why were scientists so important? Because they very often had the technology in their hands to prove which country is better than the other. So if I am a stronger military country than yours, then I have better technology, I have better equipment, better aircrafts, better ships, better rockets, better launching systems, everything. In such cases, wherever there is technology, you also will accept that wherever there is technology also creates problems. And sometimes those problems need to be resolved, perhaps on the battlefield. Now, what I've read about long back about Moseley is that he was forced to go on the battlefield to sort out some issues. And in Turkey, when the World War I was taking place, very unfortunately, in enemy crossfire, one of the bullets went through him and he did not survive. He died at a very, very young age of 27. People normally don't write too much about him. In any chapter on classification of elements, in any textbook which is available in any of the systems, whether it is ICSE, CBSE or SSE. But then here's the man who made the difference. You might say a big deal. I mean, Mendeleev had already created everything for him. He just made a small difference. He just changed atomic mass to atomic number. I'm so sorry, but that was a huge difference that we can see today in our day-to-day lives. So let's have a look at the modern periodic table. I'm going to just introduce the vertical and horizontal rows and columns which were there in the modern periodic table. The vertical columns in the modern periodic table were known as groups, and the horizontal rows were known as periods. So what I need to know today, or rather what I want you to know today, before you go to sleep, is the numbering system of the modern periodic table. Now, the numbering system is already given to you in your textbook. Most of you have received a copy of the IUPAC. Latest version was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. The IUPAC table, the modern periodic table. Before I forget, Mendeleev's periodic table is very often referred to as the short form. This is not mentioned, I think, in your textbook, as the short form of the periodic table, and the modern periodic table is the long form of the periodic table. I repeat, Mendeleev's periodic table was referred to as the short form of the periodic table, and the modern periodic table is what we refer to as the long form of the periodic table. So what do I want you to learn from this table? Something very simple for today, which we'll continue in the next lecture. We'll go into much more detail. And that is the numbering of the groups and columns, that is the groups and periods. So how many groups do you see? What did I say the groups are? The groups are the vertical columns that you can see. And if you look carefully, the groups are numbered right from 1 till 18. So you have group 1 to group 18. You have group 1 to group 18. That's the simplest way of numbering them. You just number them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and so on and so forth. But when it comes to explanation from a teacher's point of view, that's what I feel, that's my personal opinion, I feel that there is another system which helps a lot. And that is what I want you to perfect tonight. Now, what is that system? If you look very, very carefully, you have one, that is group number 1, which becomes 1A. If you can see 1A carefully out here, followed by 2A. Then you don't have a 3A. Look carefully, it's 3B, 4B, 5B, 6B, 7B. Before we go too much ahead, I repeat and I want you to mug it up right now. 1A, 2A. 3B, 4B, 5B, 6B, 7B, and then there is an 8, 8, 8. So kindly repeat after me. What's this one? Group 1A. Group 2A. Group 3B. Group 4A. Sorry, group 4B. Group 5B. Group 6B. Followed by group 7B. And then you have this cluster out here where you have a group 8, 8 and 8. And then you have, if you remember, it started with 3B. And suddenly, after 8, 8 and 8, you have 1B and 2B. I repeat, deliberately and very consciously, 1A, 2A, 3B, 4B, 5B, 6B, 7B, 8, 8, 8, then 1B and 2B. 1B and 2B. And after 2B, what comes back? The A group comes back, which stopped out there, if you notice carefully. It was 2A. And then it went on to B's. And after 2B, it stops, or rather it resumes with 3A. So you have 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A, and you see a group out here which is called the 0 group, which was added in the modern periodic table. Let's revise from 888 onwards. Let's look at 888. उसके बाद 1B, 2B, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A, and then some people still call it group 8, but we shall call it group 0. Now many of these groups have a name. Many of these groups have a name. And we will not go into that right now because I just want you to know the structure. There are 18 vertical columns. There are 18 vertical columns which are called groups. At the same time, you can see very carefully there are some horizontal rows. And if you look at the numbering carefully out there, there are 7 horizontal rows starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I want you to know only this much for the next lecture. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So number of vertical columns, 18. Number of horizontal rows, 7. You need to know all this much, at least this much, I'm sorry, to be able to understand my next lecture, which is going to be in much more detail. And of course, you need to know what you're already supposed to know in the recent past. Before I conclude, let's go back for a moment. Let's go back just for a moment to Dobrynher and to Mendeleev. Why not Newlands as well? Just one example each. If you remember Dobrynher's triads, you had examples of Dobrynher's triads. I hope none of you have done only selected examples because any of them can come. I think the first example in Dobrynher's triads in your notes was lithium, sodium, potassium. They're still together. They are in one line. They are in one column. That means they are similar elements which are still there as they were expected to be in the modern periodic table. Those guys worked on atomic masses. We are working on atomic numbers. I think you had beryllium, magnesium, calcium. I think you had calcium, strontium, barium. Check them out. They're all lying. All those triads are now lying in individual groups. And there was something, if I'm not mistaken, which was given as an example also, which starts with sulfur, selenium, and tellurium. Now, do you understand why we are still studying Dr. Reiner? Let's check out Newlands. First 20 elements. If you remember, I said the first 20 elements were absolutely in place. If you look carefully, even at this table, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remember, this was not there. It was not discovered, the elements out here. 7 followed by 8. So 8th element was similar to the first. 9th similar to the second. 10th similar to the third. And so on and so forth. And if you realize, it goes up till calcium. It goes up till calcium and it stops out there, because after calcium is scandium, which is not similar neither to magnesium nor to beryllium, neither to sodium nor to lithium nor to hydrogen. So Mendeleev did not put this under any of these groups. Hats off to both of them. Hats off to both of them that they, all three of them, Dr. Reiner, Newlands, as well as Mendeleev, they help in forming what we know today as the modern periodic table. See you soon. Be very well prepared for the next lecture, which is most likely to happen tomorrow itself. And stay safe. Study hard.